Should be live.
Scary. Yeah,
uh,
we're live.
good. Okay, awesome. I do, by the way, have an idea for a like little jingle at the beginning. So we'll just have to see how it plays out. I don't want to promise anything because I've never edited audio before, so it'll be really interesting to see how we can do this. Um, but yeah, I think that's everything. Should we wait a couple minutes, see who joins
Yeah,
in?
let's just
Okay.
chit chat for a minute, and
Yeah.
I'm going to shamelessly plug us in your Discord.
Yes, please do. And if you have the ability to tag everybody, please do it. Um, I'll post a little something on Twitter as well.
Hooray. Right. There's nothing worse than actually looking at myself on screen.
I mean, there's a reason why I avoid mirrors. It's always interesting going to other people's houses and seeing just how many mirrors they have around, and I'm like, that's odd. I have
Mm-hmm.
like as little as possible.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
what does that say about us?
Why is my dog just standing there barking at me all of a sudden? Teddy, what do you want? What do you want, baby?
Because he knows. That's why Darrow is here right in front of me, and he's making me give him love. He's like, "Oh, you're about to do something where you should be semi-professional. Oh,
Yeah, I've got treats.
allow me to interrupt that."
Just distract him with treats. That's fine. Um, Blunky! Hi, hi.
Blank.
Welcome to the stream. What I think I will do is just pop out chat.
It's a good
So I don't
idea.
have to look at myself.
No, yeah, that's a good idea. I might do the same. Okay, Darrow, please.
I can't remember how to do that now, though. Hi, Matty. It's me.
All right.
I don't remember how to pop out chat anymore.
Well, especially if you're doing it on mod view, it's very odd.
Mm. Oh, well. Never mind. We can work it out.
Yeah.
So if I do that, that's kind of cool. All right.
Okay. Tweet sent. Thanks for doing that in the Discord. Should we at tag the Book Nook Discord as well, or just
I did.
you did?
I've
Okay,
already done that.
okay,
Yeah,
perfect,
already done that one.
perfect. So then let me just pop out chat. Um, I have a hunch. Oh, what's up, Matty Ice? Uh, I have a feeling we're probably not going to address chat a ton, like while we're actually recording. Um, we'll probably try to type when we can to respond to people, but we'll do like, I figure like at the beginning of the podcast, like now when we're kind of like setting up, getting ready, we can interact, and then at the end as well. um, or maybe like when we're actually doing the review of our book of the month, then we can say like, oh, not quite elite in chat, says yada yada yada.
Yeah,
Okay.
sounds good.
Oh, I appreciate all the follows already, Maddie. And speaking of not quite elite, uh, and Claire, I haven't even followed our own channel yet.
I just did
Yeah,
just now.
yeah.
Um, yeah, and we haven't got any alerts set up,
No,
and
we don't.
we are very basic right now. We are basic
Yeah,
Twitch, basic Twitch. You're such a
very
basic
basic
Twitch.
Twitch. Yeah, yeah. Um, Elite, I thought you were doing this book discussion next week. We are. We are.
Yeah,
So this is episode 0, where we're just going to be talking about kind of like what the podcast is, what it's going to look like format wise, and then kind of get to know the co hosts type of a thing. So you do not have to have the book read yet.
yeah.
But yeah.
We're not going to do any spoilers or anything like that yet.
No, 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 not at all. Not at all.
Right, should we kick off?
I think we can. I think we can. I'll just type in our thread the timestamp, and then that will help.
Perfect. Okay,
All
I
right.
am going to get interrupted by the dog, so apologies.
Well, yeah, and we'll kind of make a disclaimer up front, so it's all good. All right. Well, welcome everybody. This is the Book Nook podcast. My name's Tim. I'm one of the co-hosts for this podcast, and with me we have our other co-host.
Hello, I'm Claire.
Yeah. Hi, Claire. How are you?
Hi. I am pretty good. It's been a really weird week, but I'm doing all right.
Yeah. Yeah. You and I were talking about that. It has been weird for you. So,
Okay.
um, what about your weekend? How's your weekend been, at least?
Weekend has been really good, and unusually for me, I've gone to bed at a reasonable time and had 2 really good sleeps,
Oh, okay. Nice.
which almost never happens at the weekend.
Yeah.
Because I try and stay up and hang out with the people in different time zones that I don't get to talk to during the week, and then I end up not sleeping at all weekend. And yeah, I'm gonna be right back because I need to open the door for the dog.
Okay.
You can
Yeah.
probably hear him in the background. He's barking at me. So I am going to be back in just a second.
Yeah, no worries. I'll just go ahead and filibuster here. So, that being said, since Claire kind of just had to step away to take care of the dog, we do have pets. Myself, I have 2 cats that might make appearances on the podcast. You might hear me say, like, you gotta get down, you gotta get down, or you might hear Teddy barking as well. So yeah. Well, why don't we just kind of like do a little bit about ourselves, and then we can kind of talk about the podcast, Claire.
Yep, yep, yep.
Um, so I'll go ahead and start us off. So my name's Tim. I'm from the Midwest in the United States, and I work in education for a living. So full time work in the education field, and I also stream on the side a little bit, mostly of the video game variety. And yeah, that's just a very little bit about me, and we'll kind of get into a little bit about ourselves with some interesting questions that we have for one another.
Right, okay, my turn. I'm Claire. Um, some people that are joining the chat will know me from doing gaming and role playing stuff. I live in England, kind of about an hour north of London. And yeah, I'm a massive bookworm, and so is Tim.
Yeah,
So that's that brought us together.
it really. So, Claire, how long have we known each other? I was thinking about
I
this.
don't actually know. It's got to be maybe 3 or 4 years. 4 years, maybe
That sounds
a
right.
bit longer.
I was even thinking maybe a little bit longer. Like at
Mm.
least we knew of each other in like in mixer chats. Like
Mm.
I know that I saw you modding for Mags, at different times. And at
Yeah.
that time, I didn't know anybody like personally. So it's probably been since just a little bit before the pandemic that we actually, I feel like, started to get to know each other a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like on
So
a more
we
personal
met.
level. Yeah.
We met. I think properly playing games together.
Yeah.
Um, I'm trying to think what game we played mostly. Probably Call of Duty, actually, wasn't it? Which is
Probably, yeah.
probably pretty awful to play.
Probably, yeah, probably Call of Duty. I was thinking Overcooked as well.
Oh, Overcooked, so
Yeah, we
good.
played a lot of Overcooked
Hmm.
with some friends. So, yeah, so I was thinking about that. I was like, how long have we actually known each other? Because um, I feel like we became fast friends once we
Hmm.
did get to know each other.
Yeah.
And that kind of sparked, the idea of a book club within a community that we had just in my own streaming community. And we would do like a book club every month, and we would read a book and discuss it. And it was kind of like very loosey goosey, not super organized. And with the pandemic, the way of the world just kind of starting to get back to, I guess, somewhat normalcy. Um, we kind of noticed that no one had much time anymore, or at least
Yeah.
everybody's time started to be devoted to other things.
Do you know, I think a lot of people made pretty drastic life choices as well during that time, like, which may have taken them in a different direction, off to
Yep.
do other things or whatever. So I think people have sort of branched out. It's amazing what the pandemic and all of that lockdown did for people, and I think maybe forced some people's decisions on things, and perhaps that's why people got a bit busy and just were doing different things. I think that's all. But yeah, we love reading, and we've got a lot in common. A lot of our world viewpoints are similar.
Hmm.
So we talk a lot about the themes in books, and our points of view tend to be quite similar, unless it comes to Edgar Allan Poe, which we do
That's
not
right.
agree on at all.
That's right.
Um,
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that.
which I'm sure we'll come to. But yeah, I think so. Our book club kind of fizzled out a little bit, but at one point it was really, really good. Like we were reading a book a month, and we were, alternating fiction and non-fiction. It was going. It was really, really good, and the discussions we were having were great. Like
Yeah,
really good, feel good, in-depth discussions about all sorts of stuff, and we really loved it. And yeah, we then just very recently decided to rebrand and make it a bit more official, and actually make a proper book club, um, uh, Twitch and Discord and everything else. So we're going to be, hopefully it'll grow. We'll have lots of people around, and we can all read books together, and yeah, have some great discussions about them.
exactly. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that I feel like I have missed. And, a lot of it is I went back to work full time. And my job from August to June is just jam packed. And I started to take classes on the side, and it was just one of those things that it was like, well, something's got to fall off a little bit. And unfortunately, that meant streaming and kind of keeping up with the community in that aspect. So I had to back off just for my own, mental health and making sure that I was taking care of myself. But you approached me maybe a month ago now.
Hmm.
And Claire, you just said like, hey, I really miss the book club. I had an idea. What if we brought it back and we, kind of formatted it in a more organized way? And then this way, it's not all on one person, right? Like you and I are both co-hosting this. We're both partners in this podcast, and I was like, yes, sign me up. I'm ready. So that's kind of how this all kind of came to be. So we do have a little bit of history, not necessarily podcasting. This is new to us.
Hmm.
But, we had talked about even previously when we were doing the book club before that, we wanted it to be a talk show esque, podcast type of a format. And so that's kind of how we landed here. Maybe we should talk a little bit about like our schedule and what we plan
Hmm.
to do with our podcast.
Yeah.
And a lot of this, I will just preface this for the audience. We don't have everything ironed out. And a little asterisk is that we can change anything at any time. But I feel like we are wanting to commit to reading one book a month with the community and whomever would like to join us for that. Um, and from there, I don't know, Claire, what are you thinking? Anything additional? We'll just kind of let the community know.
Yeah, definitely. Anything as it comes to us, we might decide to do an ad hoc stream about something that we thought about in a week. Um, we'll let people know what's going on. We're open to ideas of what other people would like to see. Um, it, I had a couple of kind of offshoot ideas about watch parties and stuff, but we can kind of all discuss that as a community at some point.
Yeah.
Um, I think it would be fun to, do some other stuff as well. But the main thrust will be a book once a month. We haven't even decided how we're going to decide on that book yet, but we did decide on the first book of the month, which is on the screen at the moment. But we'll
Hmm.
come to that. And then we will somehow decide what kind of book we're going to read for the next month.
Yeah.
Uh, and yeah, at the end of that month, we'll do a podcast, discuss the book. We might invite somebody on to talk a little bit briefly about what they thought, or we might get some feedback in advance that we can use within the podcast. It might trigger a discussion. So anything like that. Yeah, that's kind of I think where we're going with it.
Yeah. Yeah. We're purposely not locking ourselves down to a ton of commitments up front because we do recognize that, both of us have a lot going on, and we know that committing to more and over promising and under delivering is never, ideal. It's never a great thing. One of the things that we are going to do is live stream on Twitch. So, thank you for those that are in the chat right now. Appreciate you. I appreciate you hanging out, and I hope that you enjoy the video option of this podcast. What we'll do is we'll actually be pulling the audio from the VOD, and we'll be using that to deliver an audio only vessel for the podcast that will be hopefully going up on RSS feeds. More on that to come, because that's something that we haven't completely ironed out yet, but we know that that's an option that we want to provide for people. So yeah. And also, just to kind of throw it out there, Claire, you had mentioned like some different types of streams. I don't
Hmm.
know if people have an interest in like, uh, being read to, but like I even thought about like, hey, it would be kind of cool to just take a chapter from a book that I really like, and maybe it's not on cam, but just something where like, hey, I'm just gonna read a little bit of this book and talk about it, promote it, and then send it out. And if that's
I
something that
would love
people are
that.
interested,
I would love that. Like
you
I
would.
would, if you record yourself reading a book, I will listen to it every night,
No
even to
way.
sleep. Yeah, absolutely. It'd be great.
Oh, that's really nice of you to say. Um, Personally, I can't stand my own voice. What's
Same.
interesting is that I like the sound of my voice in my head,
Hmm.
but it doesn't sound like that when I listen to it back. I'm like, who is that?
I don't know if I like the sound of my voice in my head. I'm so used to it. But yeah, when you hear yourself back, it sounds completely different.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know how to describe my voice other than, I don't know, bag of nails being dragged along the floor or something.
Get out of here.
It's horrendous.
Not at all. Not at
So what
all.
did I decide to do with my life? I thought I'd start a podcast.
Right? I know. Well, my mom always said I had a face for radio, so here I am, finally coming forward with this. No, she didn't. I'm just messing, Mom, if you're listening. But one thing that we really wanted to do, and we're not really sure what we're going to do in terms of affiliate status on Twitch if we get to that point. Claire and I have talked about different options. What we really want to do more than anything is just to promote some charities that are based around literature, books, organizations that protect books. Right now, there's a very hot topic going on in my state regarding books that are available in public education libraries, like public schools. And I do live in a more conservative part of the world. And so we're having lots of discussions with school boards and politicians around those choices being available for students. And so that's a whole other topic that I won't get into right now, but that's all to say that, I feel like Claire and I definitely appreciate the ability to access all sorts of books, all types of books by all types of authors. And what that might mean for our listeners or our viewers on Twitch is that there might be some topics that Claire and I are very passionate about. All that we ask is that you respect our opinions and our views on things, and we'll also do the same. And if you would like to reach out to us to discuss it more in depth, any topic that we are discussing, we are totally open to it, because one thing that I know about myself, Claire, is that I am not an expert in everything.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Me too.
So we're open to learning.
I know a little bit about a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm happy to hear any point of view. I might disagree with it.
Yeah,
I'm happy
totally.
to hear it.
Yeah, we're ready to listen. We're open to it. But if it gets to a point where it's not, we're not having a diplomatic, process in terms of conversation, and it's not respectful, we will put that down. So, for those of you that are watching on Twitch, you saw some of the chat rules. Those are basically the norms for the podcast. And so for our audio listeners, I thought it might just be good to go over those. One thing that Claire and I are going to attempt to do is be respectful of everyone. Some topics that we discuss might be sensitive, and we're going to do our best to warn our audience when we feel it might make someone feel uncomfortable. Any sensitive topics that come up, we might just put a little warning ahead of that. We'll do that live, but we'll also do that in editing as well, just to make sure that if we start to talk about a sensitive topic, if you are someone that may want to skip ahead a little bit, we'll just put a little blip in the audio podcast that just says, hey, skip to, minute 20 to, if you'd like to avoid this topic of discussion. So,
we'll have to get something that we can put on the screen as well, I think, so that people that are watching live, we can just sort of say, it's safe to unmute now.
That's a good, some sort of a signal. That's a good point.
Yeah.
And I know that we have some mods in chat, and that's something that we may add on to as well. Those people might be really crucial in that discussion in terms of letting people know, like, they can tune back in if they're wanting that. So with that being said, you can reach out to myself and or Claire or our mods if you have a concern or a feedback of any kind. We are very much open to. I know Claire and I will be monitoring the comments as we can, but we might not immediately address it, if that makes sense. You'll just have to give us a little bit of time to do that. Um,
Hmm.
a couple other ones: just be kind, courteous, and friendly to us and other fellow bookworms in chat. And then bigotry, homophobia, transphobia, and racism will not be tolerated. I think that that's something that both Claire and I feel very, very adamant about.
Hmm.
That is not up for debate or discussion. You will not be welcome here if you start to type some things in chat that might reflect some of those thoughts. So with that, I feel like that's the housekeeping. That's like,
That's good housekeeping. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I think just the trigger warning thing is going to
Hmm.
be kind of useful for people because when you're reading and when you're discussing books, quite often you find themes within books, and it can be in the oddest of places, but you'll find a theme that will like create a discussion, and that discussion will end up being about something that's quite challenging or problematic or triggering for people. So yeah, I
Hmm.
think we definitely will wave a flag and say, hang on, we're getting into some some dicey stuff here. If you don't want to listen, mute, and we'll tell you when we've finished talking about it, and that'll be should help.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I just hope that if anybody has feedback, just please, don't hesitate to reach out. We're totally open to, podcast segments, things that we think are fun. We'll definitely be going off on tangents. I'm sure you'll be hearing about things that we love to play, to watch, to
Excuse me.
we need to
Yeah,
get a cough button, things like
yeah.
that. Like thing, that'll be fun.
I
Um,
actually have a cough button and I never use it,
do
but
you?
it's actually quite hard to reach.
Oh, I need to get myself a stream deck. I think that would be really nice. Um,
There you go,
so
tangent.
yeah, exactly. There you go, a tangent. Um, so then I guess we can go ahead and just move into our next topic, which is just to promote our first book of the month. This is something that we decided on as as co-hosts, but also we took our community's input in mind for our first book, and that is a book called Clara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I may not.
I guess.
um, so that for the audio listeners at home, we have a graphic that just got put up on our screen. It's kind of centered in our screen, just the book cover. So that's something that we have read or are still reading. I guess, Claire, are you finished reading it?
No,
Okay.
not yet.
All right.
I'm about a third of the way through.
Okay.
I haven't finished it yet.
Okay. So I finished it just this past week. And so we'll be going ahead and discussing that. And there will be like a part of the podcast that will be spoiler free. And then we will put like a hard edit in there and say, like, okay, from this point on, it's no holds barred. Like, we're going to be spoiling the rest of this book. So I guess prepare yourselves now for that. If you haven't already, you'll have approximately a week to go ahead and read that book. Initial impressions, do we want to even go there?
Um, I'm not sure. Yeah.
Let's save it.
Uh, yeah. Let's
Let's
save
save
it.
it.
I think
Let's
we'll
save
save
it.
it for next week. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
I
that's
have
totally fine.
thoughts, but
You have thoughts, yeah.
I'm gonna save them.
Well, and I'm curious to see how those thoughts will morph. Yeah,
As I get through it.
as you get
Yeah.
through it. So, um, let's see. I guess we should talk a little bit about our social media presence.
Yeah.
Um,
We have one.
we do have one. In we don't have the commands in Twitch yet
Yeah.
to spout those off, but we
We're gonna
do.
work all of this out this week. We're gonna be so slick by next week. It's gonna be brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, this is why
Hmm.
it's episode 0, Claire. It's yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. We're
Um,
gonna be slick.
so we do have a Twitter account. we do have a Discord that we use. And if you would like to be a part of that, any of those, we will make sure that we'll update the RSS feed. In the description, we'll include links to at least our Twitter, which will then have a link to like our Discord and things.
That
And
bit I can do. I can put a
okay.
Discord link in the chat. I have done that.
Oh, perfect. Awesome. So Claire, I guess one thing that I didn't get to ask you is, should we have a joint Goodreads account, or are we just gonna like share like our personal Goodreads?
I mean, I shared my personal one. I think if we had
Yeah.
a shared one, it would take me a really long time to go through and kind of add all of the books I've read, and I still haven't
Oh,
added all
yeah.
of the books that I've read to my own Goodreads account, and there's already like 200 and something on there. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah,
No, I think
absolutely.
I don't mind sharing my personal one. That's fine,
Okay.
but
Yeah,
I don't mind whatever you want to do. Really.
No, I'll do the same as well. Like, I know that Goodreads has like fan pages for book clubs and things like that, but I
Mm,
feel like our Discord serves that purpose just fine. And if
yeah,
people are curious about like some of the books that I've read in the past or are currently reading, they can check out that personal Goodreads account.
I always forget to update Goodreads, and then I'll go in like every couple of months and go, oh, damn, and then I've got to try and think back over what I've read recently and put it in there.
I'm pretty good about it. I feel like for me, it's like I get some sort of reinforcement um, out of like clicking that I have read the book, and giving a little bit of a rating. Um, and we will talk about our rating system next
Oh, yes.
podcast. But we have a rating system that we really like. And it's one, if for those of you that are familiar and participated in our book club before, it is going to be very, very similar to that, if not exactly like that. So, yeah, so that's still something that we're going to kind of talk about off air and discuss and then implement for our next podcast.
What we should do is also make sure we get a rating off everybody that's read it in the Discord as well, and then
Yes.
record that somehow. That would be good.
Yes. Yeah. I really liked that aspect of the book club that we had, where we would, make sure to mark down everybody that participated in reading it and gave it a rating based off this system. And it's just kind of nice to look back, actually, and just kind of see, like, oh, well, how did this person rate this book that we read together? Um, so, yeah, I really like that idea.
Also, it kind of showed up trends. Like I know at some point you said to me, you either really, really like a book or you really hate a book. There's kind of nothing in the middle.
There were, yeah.
And that's really true. I'm not very critical of books
Hmm.
generally. There's certain books that I just didn't like, couldn't get into, whatever.
Yeah.
But some books that I pushed through because it was the book club, and then actually didn't really like them for whatever reason. But yeah, I'm not hugely critical of writing and um, literature. I tend to just suspend disbelief and read it, and either I like it or I don't like it. It's a bit, yeah. I
Oh.
feel the same about movies and television as well. Like, I know some people sit there and go, well, such and such couldn't do that because that wouldn't have been the case for that thing. And it just gets a bit analytical.
Hmm.
I'm not really that analytical. I either really liked it or I didn't. But that doesn't mean I don't have really strong opinions about certain bits within the book or whatever. But yeah, I'm quite good at just reading it without a critical eye and
I
just enjoying it.
I envy that. Um, and I will say, like, I am no expert when it comes to like uh, writing a book. I've never written a book, so I don't know what it's like. But I definitely know styles that I like and don't like, and I definitely feel like uh, I do tend to pick apart media, any form of media, a little bit, and try to attribute, almost like in a rating or like what I liked and didn't like about different aspects of that media. So, anyway, that's just a little tidbit into, I guess, the inner workings of Claire and myself in regards to how we we break down on
Mm.
books that we like, or read, I should say, not just like. So, um, okay. Whew. I feel like we've gotten a lot of things already crossed off the list that we wanted to get to and address. Um,
Yeah.
or I guess the next thing that we were going to talk about is just to help kind of get to know us a little bit better. Kind of talk about some of our favorite books. By genre or just some of our reading habits, things like that. So, I guess to start off, Claire,
Hmm.
I'm not going to ask you your favorite book right off the bat, okay? But
Okay.
I'm curious when you are reading, what's the setup? What types of things do you like to have? What's your ideal reading setting or place or like things that you have to read?
So I think there's two answers to this. One is the I wish I did this more,
Mm,
and that is curling up on the sofa, being comfortable, blanket on my lap, cup
mm-hmm,
of tea next to me. I don't know, maybe a biscuit, cookie, whatever. Um, and then sit and read for the afternoon.
mm-hmm,
What generally happens is that I either listen to an audiobook while I'm driving to work
mm-hmm.
or while I'm trying to get off to sleep at night or I'm reading a book in bed. And then the rest of the time, I wish I spent more time reading and I don't. I definitely need to do that more because I love it. But I just get distracted.
Yeah, yeah.
And also, it's that thing where I sort of have to give myself permission to do it. Like, I almost feel a little bit guilty if I take time out to just sit on a sofa and read.
Mm.
I don't feel the same guilt if I'm sitting there watching telly or a film or I'm playing a game. But for some reason, I feel like I shouldn't be allowed to read until I've done the washing up or, something like that. Tidied the
Oh,
house.
that's really interesting.
It's just a really weird me thing. But what about you? What's your setup? How do you?
Okay, so I in different times of my life, I really enjoyed going to a coffee shop with a book and reading, like reading in public. Um, I am definitely one of those people that needs to have some sort of background noise. Um, and I don't know. I don't have the best like attention span, so I'm sure that I get distracted quite a bit, when I do read in public. But I enjoy it. I kind of like similar to you about like I know that I should do it more because it's it's good for me, type of a thing. But I would say since the pandemic, and of course like I'm not in coffee shops all the time. Um, I would say like I use a recliner and I pop that recliner up and I have two cats. So usually it'll be like blanket and then both cats on me, with like coffee next to me, hot coffee, and maybe some type of lo-fi music in the background, and then I'll that's like I really it's I'm talking like someone that really enjoys like bubble baths, and they really like just set the stage for this
Yeah.
experience. It's not just pick up a book and read it; it's an experience, Claire.
Hmm.
But not. I don't get to do that all the time or for very long periods of time. So I do consume audiobooks as well. So for my job, I travel from school to school, and sometimes a one way trip is 40 minutes to a school. So, I'm able to digest a lot of content that way.
Yeah, me too. I do that a lot. So currently, my work is about an hour, depending on what time I leave. Um, so yeah, I'm in the car for an hour both ways generally, and I can get a lot of listening done that way. And then also, if I'm at work for a whole day, um, because I work a lot from home, I also have to go to site visits and stuff like that. But if I'm in the office for a whole day, then that lunchtime bit, I will either be reading a book or listening to an audiobook in the car somewhere
Mm,
on my own because I like to get away from people. But yeah, I used to read in public. I used to take books with me everywhere. So I used to commute on the train into work. So I'd read on the train, or
Mm.
I'd go out weekends. I'd sit in coffee shops and read, all of that sort of stuff. And kind of now I don't really go out in public unless I absolutely have to.
I mean, same. I worked in a
So
coffee. Yeah,
I don't go to coffee shops anymore.
I know. Just this past week I went to a coffee shop because I had like an hour to kill between meetings, and I brought my laptop in, and for the longest time they weren't even allowing guests to stay. It was more of like a pick up your coffee and leave, because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was a very interesting experience to sit down at a coffee shop again. And, I wasn't reading at that point. I was actually just doing work. But still, it was something that after the fact I reflected on, and I was like, oh, I missed that. I don't think I realized how much I missed that. Just kind of getting out of the house to engage in a specific targeted activity like that, really helps my focus. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think I would have any background noise on while I'm reading generally at home. I think I'd just be in silence, just me and the book.
um, I got into, so when I was reading a lot of sci-fi, and like fantasy, I was listening to the Blade Runner 2049 soundtrack, and it like went so well with the Red Rising series that I was reading. It was perfect.
Brilliant.
So, just a fun fact, I guess, about me. Um, do you have any questions or anything that you want to ask me?
I want to ask you, um, have you ever dropped a book in the bath?
Ooh, that's a
Stupid
good
question.
question. No, I love it. I love the silliness. No, I haven't, because I I'm more of a shower guy, than a bath. And I don't know. I actually had this conversation with another friend of like, what is the typical size for a bathtub? Because I don't adhere to the typical American like apartment standard bathtub. Um, I feel like it was made for children, and if I like trying to sit in it is very uncomfortable for me. So I've never had that experience.
So I am also more of a shower person. I don't have baths very often at all. I used to a lot. I used to have baths and read a lot
Yeah.
in the bath. Um, and I remember I have dropped several books
Oh
in the
my
bath over
gosh.
my time, um, including the final Harry Potter book that came out.
No. Oh,
Yeah,
when it came out too? Like
yeah,
this
yeah,
wasn't a
yeah.
repeat read.
No, 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 no. This was when it came out. We queued at
Oh
midnight to
my
get this
goodness.
book, and then I actually bought three copies of it because none of us.
Wow.
Um, my mum was living with me. My son was at home. We all wanted to read it, and none of us were going to wait. So we had to buy three copies. And I dropped mine in the bath, so I then had to steal someone else's. But it's fine. I got there. But yeah, I've dropped a few books in the bath, including my mum's books as well, which has not gone down too well
Oh.
because we
Wow.
used to swap books quite a lot because
Sure.
she also is an avid reader. So
Mm.
yeah, we would swap books around, and I'm not very careful with books also. So this is the other question.
Okay.
I personally dog ear the pages,
I knew
bend
you.
the spines.
Okay. If you were not
I
gonna,
do not
if you
do
were gonna
not
ask me this,
respect.
I was gonna ask you this. Okay.
I do not respect the books at all, and because I kind of like the lived-in feel of a book
Hmm.
after I've read it. But how do you kind of do you have a bookmark? I bet you've got a bookmark.
Okay. So I am. I'm like, you and I have played D&D. I'm like the chaotic good, like alignment type in terms of my book reading habits and style. Um, So I do prefer like a hard book. Like if I had to choose between a hardcover versus softcover book, I do prefer hardcover. Um, I like the feel of it. That being said, I'm dog earing that book left and right all the way. And if I do have a soft back book, I'm curling it and I'm like folding the cover on the other
Mm.
side so that I can hold it in one hand. Um, so
Yeah,
they
that's
they
exactly what I do. Yeah.
they definitely get thrown around a bit,
Yeah.
and when I'm done with a book, it looks ridiculous.
I have a friend who will not let me read any of her books because she
No,
just will. She will not. She will never bend a spine ever. And
really.
I wouldn't feel comfortable even trying to read one of her books and not like I couldn't read a
How?
book without opening it fully.
Yeah.
You know?
How did like what do you do then? Do you just like open it a little bit so that you're like
Yeah,
peeking into the pages?
yeah. I think that's what she does. She's just like,
Oh my word.
yeah,
How could that
just like
how's
that.
that comfortable?
I don't know, but she manages it. She reads quite a lot
Wow.
as well. So yeah.
No, like one of okay, so guilty pleasure of mine when it comes to books is cracking the spine. Like that
Hmm.
sound is very like I don't know. It's I just like that sound of the spine cracking in the book, and the smell of a new book. I love
Mm.
the smell of in a in general like a bookstore. Like I love the smell of a bookstore, just like the smell of paper, I guess, and
Yeah.
ink.
No, I do as well. I like old bookstores as well. Like the smell of a dodgy old bookstore. It just smells of tobacco and dust
Yeah,
and
there's
paper and yeah.
something about it. I totally
Mm.
get that. Um, yeah, so I guess I do have a bookmark to go just to go back and touch on your question one more time. I do have a bookmark that our friends at Exico made me. Um,
Oh yeah.
yeah, and I really like loved and cherished that bookmark, and so I do use that. Um, but I tend to, and this is where the chaotic good comes into play, Claire. I read multiple books at the same time. Are you
Yeah.
that
I
type?
do that. Yeah, yeah, I do that.
Okay.
Not so much not so much at the moment because time is a bit of an issue
Mm-hmm.
because of other things that are going on socially.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I've definitely been a person to read two or three books at the same time. So at the moment, I'm reading two books at the same time because I've got an audio book and I've got our book of the month that I'm
Right.
reading. So I've got two going on at the same time. But yeah, I've definitely gone for multiple. Yeah, in the past.
I at any given time am reading three or four books, and I am terrible. Like that's where my reading habits really are probably shameful. In that I'll read half a book and then start a new one and pick up a new one. Um,
Hmm.
I struggle to walk into a bookstore and not walk out with two or three to add to the stack.
Yep.
Pretty bad about that as well. Um,
Yeah, me too.
here's
Although I keep looking for new audiobooks to listen to, and I'm sort of stuck in a sci-fi rut at the moment.
mm,
And I've kind of run out of the sci-fi that I like to read, and now I'm struggling to find something else that's grabbing me.
okay.
So I'm really struggling for a book to read at the moment. I've got a couple going, so I'm not desperate yet. But yeah, I think come the end of next week I'm going to be. Now what am I going to read?
Interesting.
So
Uh, is there a book that you just could not get through? Like you I mean, you probably have a, there might be more than one, but is there one that stands out to you that you're like I just can't and I have to stop because this is brutal.
mm, I am struggling now to remember books that I've started and not finished, but there are a few I know. Oh, I tell you, there was one. It was a non-fiction book about history called Empire by Niall Ferguson, I
Hmm.
think his name is. And I started reading it and realized really quite early on that it was incredibly biased towards, let's just say, the right side of the political
Ah,
divide,
got you.
um, which kind of annoys me when you're looking at history for it to be that biased because that's sort of the problem with history
Right.
and history books is that they tend to have a perspective
Yeah.
that is stuck on one side or the other, and
Mm-hmm.
this one was very very much against the grain, and I just found myself getting angrier and angrier and angrier, and then just went, nope, I'm not reading that anymore. And yeah, put it down, never picked it up again.
Wow.
It is still on my bookshelf actually, and I see it every now and then, and I
You
have a
kept it.
visceral reaction to
I
it.
was gonna say
I
you
see
kept
it on
it.
the bookshelf. I know. I see it on the bookshelf, and I'm like, I hate that book. Um, I actually have like this irrational kind of hatred towards the author, um, but I've still got it for some unknown reason. It's still there. But yeah.
Hmm.
What about you?
Uh,
Oh, and Edgar Allan Poe, obviously. Couldn't get through any of
yeah, you
that,
did
but
not
yeah,
finish that. Yeah.
I did not finish that.
Um. Okay. So there, I can't think of one that I was just like I detested so much. But I have a lot of books that I just could not. It just didn't hook me, and I kind of have this like rule that I've given myself, and just to try to get form some try to give books a chance, authors a chance, things like that. Is I'll read the first 100 pages of a book, and if you haven't hooked me in those 100 pages, there's a pretty high chance that I'm gonna stop reading it.
Hmm.
And so I have just recently been reading The Wheel of Time, book one, um, of that series, and it's a long series. I forget how many books there are. There's like 13 books in that series, maybe more. There's probably more. I
Right.
don't even know. Um, but and they're long, they're dense, and I am struggling to get through it right now, and I think it's probably one that I'll stop reading. Like, just knowing how much I have yet to read in the book, I'm just like, okay, no, I gotta. I'm not feeling it, and I have this like weird feeling of when I'm not into a book, I'm like, I could be reading a book that I love right now. Like I could be
Yeah.
using my time in that way.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Have you watched the series, The Wheel of Time?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you haven't? No, okay. No,
Is it
I haven't. I think I watched the first episode, and it was okay, but it didn't really grab me.
sure?
So I probably will watch the second at some point if I get bored enough or have enough time.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
it's not
I
like Game of Thrones where I was like pretty hooked from the first episode.
exactly. Yeah, and yeah, I don't know. Just for some reason, it's not grabbing me, and when there's like a barrier to entry of like somebody said, well, once you get like through book three, it really gets good. I'm like,
Mm.
that's a very high bar. Like, I'm not
It's
gonna
a
clear
really
that.
long. That
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a lot of book before it gets good. Yeah.
exactly, exactly.
Actually, that's an interesting one, Game of Thrones. So I had not read the Game of Thrones books before the series came out. I watched the first series, and then I started reading the books. And a friend of mine sent them to me, and I started reading them because I desperately wanted to know what would happen next because I enjoyed the series so much. And then
Mm,
obviously the books kind of stopped, the series continued, and we're still waiting for the final book. Um, so that was kind of this weird arc of book stroke TV. Have you had anything kind of like that where watching something has made you want to go and read the book? Um, is there
hmm.
anything where Particularly if if the book's then been brilliant or terrible, or I know we've
Yeah.
just talked about the Wheel of Time, but is there anything
Yeah.
else?
So I will say, like, I have two examples of that. I do try to read the book before I see the media or the visual format of that adaptation, whatever you want to call it, whether it's a show or a movie. But two examples where I watched the movie before I read the book was Ready Player One and um, The Martian.
Oh, okay,
Yeah. So,
interesting.
and the Ready Player One, I did not like the movie very much, but everybody was like, "Oh, the book's way better." So I was like, "Okay, I'm going to give it a shot." And I did end up enjoying the book a lot more than the
Mm.
movie. And The Martian, I actually enjoyed the movie more than the book, which I feel like that was not the case for many people. Um,
Yeah, that's interesting because I watched The Martian a long time ago, and then I've only recently read The Martian, like
mm,
this year. I read
okay.
The Martian,
So what did
and
you
it was
think?
after I'd read Project Hail Mary. I think
Oh,
I
it was
think I read them.
after?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. So I read The Martian first before
So
Project Hail Mary.
I think it's because I saw a review that said that Project Hail Mary was the same as The Martian. Find a problem, find a way to
Yeah.
fix it, next problem.
Mm-hmm.
And it is kind of like that, but it's also really entertaining for some reason. I don't know why, but it is. Um, and I think I agree with you a little bit about The Martian. I enjoyed the book, but I couldn't. I don't know if maybe the movie spoiled it for me, but I almost couldn't visualize some of what was going on in the book. Um, it's difficult to explain actually. So I think the end bit where they're describing, I don't want to spoil it.
Mm-hmm. No, that's okay.
um, I think where they're describing his exit from
Yeah.
Mars in the book, the description, it didn't kind of work in my brain. I couldn't see it,
Sure.
but obviously it was very very good in the film.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think I kind of agree with you. I think the film was actually a little bit better than the book, which is unusual, very unusual.
Yeah, I
But yeah,
can't.
Ready Player
Yeah.
One definitely. I read the book before the film. Ready Player One was a good book. The film nowhere near lived up to it.
No, and it like to think about it, I'm not sure that it really could live up to
No.
to the book because the book didn't have to worry about all the licensing, you know, constraints that the movie had to, and um,
Yeah.
it was I don't know for whatever reason it was easier to visualize.
Mm.
And maybe it's just that um, our individual ideas and visualizations in our imagination were better and couldn't be topped by what they did to try
Yeah.
to replicate that.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah. So I was going to ask another question. I've forgotten what it was. But what about? Um, did you want to talk about favorite books?
Yeah, why don't we do that? Because then that'll kind of bring us to uh, our closing segment, I guess.
Hmm.
Um, so we could go genre by genre, but we'll be here all day. So I guess I won't. I will start by sharing my favorite fiction book and then my favorite nonfiction book. How about that?
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, so my favorite fiction book is To Kill a Mockingbird. And the what's interesting about this book is for me is that I was forced to read it in school, in elementary school. Well, middle school. I was probably in fifth or sixth grade, and when I read it, and when you tell me that I have to read a book, that is usually when you lose me. Like, if I'm going to have to take a quiz on this book, if I'm going to have to analyze it and I have no interest in the book, whatever, um, I'm not going to like it. Um, and that was the case. with this book, but I was also way too young to really understand it and be able to apply some of the themes and some of the topics that Harper Lee used in this book. And I one thing that I did really like though was I liked the characters. So for whatever reason, after I read it the first time, years later in high school, I decided to read it again. And I found myself really much more engaged with it. And it's a book that I've read multiple times since. I have to say, I haven't read it in like the last 6 or 7 years. Pretty much since I started working full time, I just haven't been able to go back and read it. So I'm not sure how it holds up today. And I might have a different opinion of it than I did before. But yeah, I would say that that's my favorite fiction book.
Yeah, it's a great book. I loved it, and I didn't read it until a couple of years ago.
Oh,
Um,
really?
Fairly recently, I guess. But yeah, I don't know why. I never really knew much about it. I'd never seen the film with Jimmy
Hmm.
Stewart in, which is a great film as well.
That's a
Um,
yeah, yeah.
and I didn't really know a huge amount about it. It wasn't something that I had to read at school. And then I can't remember why I ended up reading it, but I did, and I just absolutely loved it. Um, and I think I loved the is it Scout? Is that
Yes.
her name?
Yep, Scout.
Yeah, Scout. I just loved her as a character.
Yeah, Scout and
Just
Atticus.
amazing. Yeah. Um, and it was just lovely to see, a little girl portrayed that way.
Uh
It's
huh.
just yeah, great, great, great book. Yeah.
Especially in a time where, as a child, you're very impressionable, but you come at things with a curiosity of like, well, why would I treat someone differently?
Yeah.
Because of it's like there's an innocence to it as
Oh,
well.
totally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. I really love that book.
Yeah, it's a great book. What
What?
about your
Okay,
non-fiction, or do you want me to go through mine? Do you want me to talk about mine first?
sure. Yeah, let's go back and forth.
Okay. I I found it so difficult to pick a favorite, and I still haven't really picked a favorite. But today,
Yeah, yeah.
my favorite, um, I've got a couple, is David Copperfield by Charles
Mm,
Dickens, or Anything by Jane Austen. Um, and I think I'm going to go with David Copperfield. Um, and I could have picked almost any book by Charles Dickens, including, Bleak House, Tale of Two Cities, Oliver Twist, any of those.
it's interesting.
Um,
Yeah.
but I think David Copperfield is and Bleak House, I think, are equally my favourites. And maybe Great Expectations. Anyway, again, I'd never read a lot of Dickens up until maybe a few years ago. I've actually got it in my hand right now, just
Yeah.
waving a book around. A friend of mine bought me the complete works of Charles Dickens in these like beautiful bound
That's very cool.
volumes. They're from like the 1920s or 30s, I think. And they're lovely, and they've got some lovely like plates and stuff. And anyway, but it kind of Charles Dickens really speaks to my political mind because he wrote about the um, the most unfortunate um, people. He wrote about the everyday people that lived in and around London or on the coast. He wrote about working people. Wrote about um, beggars and
Hmm.
prostitutes and all of these people that were um, sort of not really looked upon with any kind of grace from the middle and upper classes of London and the UK at the time. And he wrote about them with such depth and empathy and a real insight into why. some people were more fortunate than others, and it kind of, I love reading it because I go, yes, he had it right. He knew what was going on. He knew why it was going on. He knew what the problems were, and he was trying to use his writing to help other people understand it and do something about it. No, it didn't do anything about it, and we still have exactly the same problems now. It's never got any
Yeah.
better, really, which is sad. But
Right.
um, yeah, I think that's why I love it. And you know, David Copperfield is a son of a widow who whose mum eventually dies. His stepfather is awful. He goes off to school. He meets some amazing characters, and the characterizations that Dickens does is brilliant. Um, just the names of people is kind of interesting. Those people that will remember Oliver Twist will remember the Bumbles, who run the children's home that Oliver lives in. Um, and it's just, those characters are so incredible. Um, but David Copperfield, it's a good story. He starts off well, then comes the fall, then he rises up again, and eventually everybody lives happily ever after, and he becomes a writer, and all is great with the world. But and so it's got a lovely happy ending, which is always nice, I think, in a book. I'm not one of these people that say, that happy endings are terrible, because I like a
Right.
happy ending. I
Oh
like to
yeah,
feel good at
sure.
the end of a book.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so that I think is certainly one of my favorite books,
Hmm.
and Dickens is one of my favorite authors.
I
So
should
I
I
think
should give it a read.
that's
I've
good.
I've only read and I mean this is gonna look really bad if I'm wrong, but I've only read one book by Charles Dickens, and it uh, I got he used a lot of Old English.
Hmm.
I don't know if that's pretty common for his style, but it was Christmas Carol.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I can't really speak to whether or not that same style of writing kind of translates over to all of his books, or some, or other books of his.
Yeah, no, it does.
It
It
does.
is kind of yeah. A lot of the time, if you're not very familiar with some of the very English, old English
Okay.
terms that he used, you end up getting the gist. But it is very
Yeah.
wordy, and he's very flowery with his words, and he does talk a lot.
Okay.
But for some reason, I don't mind it when he talks a lot,
Yeah, that's
and I
cool.
really hate it when Edgar Allan Poe talks a lot.
I know. That's what's so interesting. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
But I think the writing speaks to me,
That's
you know.
cool. Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Okay, so my favorite nonfiction book. Hmm. I have two that I'm trying to flip back and forth between. Um, and I'm trying not to choose the one because of recency bias. Um, but I feel like I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go with A Promised Land by Barack Obama.
Oh, such a good book.
Yeah, I
Hmm.
absolutely devoured that book. I loved lots of things about it. I did not physically read it, so I listened to it via like an Audible podcast or an Audible book. Uh,
I think it should be illegal to read that book
I
or
know.
listen to his voice.
Yeah, I love his voice, and I listened to it slash read it during a time where the country that I currently live in, it was very bleak. It was very dark, and it gave me an interesting. I mean, first of all, it took me back to a better time. I would say, um, just in terms of like societal climate, and it kind of gave where he could. I felt like it gave like an interesting, nuanced point of view of like some of the some of his thoughts behind big events that happened while he was in his presidency. But what I found really interesting was even before that, his kind of like rise through the rankings and talking about his how he grew up and talking about the people that influenced him and were big influences on him that gave lasting impressions. And I just I just loved it. I just found myself really hanging on to like everything that he said, every story that he told. I was very interested in, and um, yeah, I don't. I just it's a very long book, I will say, and I have heard that if you read it, the physical copy of that, it is much drier and like not as easy to digest. So keep that in mind. I guess if I were to recommend it, I would recommend it via Audible or an
Yeah,
audio version of it.
yeah. It well, I found it really interesting too. That book, I did find it really interesting, and all of the processes
Hmm.
of government and local government and being a local organizer as well. That kind of from there, that journey and all of those processes involved was kind of fascinating when he told me about it.
Hmm.
I'm not sure I would have found it as fascinating reading about it, but
No,
it
probably
was,
not.
yeah,
Yeah, I have to
yeah, it
say,
was good.
probably not.
And then I read or listened to actually Michelle's book, Michelle Obama's book,
Yes. Yeah.
for
Oh,
the
yeah.
almost like the same time
It
period.
was. Yeah. So
That was
listening to her
also really
perspective
interesting.
is, yeah, yeah. I love that too.
Yeah, she's my hero. I love her so much.
So
Okay, you ready for mine?
I'm ready for yours. Let's hear it.
We've talked about this one before. It's called Letters Between Six Sisters. Trying to say
Yes.
a lisp. Um, and it's literally a huge volume of letters between six sisters, and it's
Mm.
about the Mitford sisters, which were a British socialite family from the aristocracy. I think their father was a baron, um, and they grew up between the letters actually kind of sit between 1910 and 2003.
Hmm.
So it's a really long period, like
Yeah.
it's 93 years of letters worth in there.
That's wild.
And I've always been fascinated by letters and books of letters. Um, I love diaries as well, diaries and letters. I don't know why, probably because I'm so nosy about the inner workings of people's lives that like Samuel Pepys's diaries, absolutely fascinating to me. But anyway, six sisters writing to each other. They were quite different in ages, but the interesting thing about them was what happened around the time that they were really coming of age. So we're talking the 20s, 30s, and
Mm.
40s. So we're talking around the Second World War, the rise of fascism. The Spanish Civil War played a big part in their lives because one of the sisters ran off with somebody to the Spanish Civil War. Um, Another of the sisters became best friends with Hitler. In fact, two of the sisters became best friends with Hitler.
I remember you telling
Um,
me this.
and
Yeah.
there's these amazing letters that they write where they're talking about what a sweet, dear heart he is, and oh, he held my hand through lunch and he was so sweet. Poor Führer. And I'm like, whoa,
Oh.
you know, um, and it was so strange. I mean, one of the sisters married the leader of the British Union and fascists, Oswald Mosley, and she remained a fascist till she died at the age of 93. Um, she was in prison during the war with her husband, uh, and so there was one sister who was communist, two sisters that were Nazis, another sister that grew up to be a world-renowned author, Nancy Mitford, who wrote *The Pursuit of Love*, amongst other things. Pam, who ended up just running a farm in Ireland. She was probably the least well known of them. And then the final one, Debo became the Dowager Duchess of Devonshire. She married the Duke of Devonshire, and she renovated and re-established Chatsworth House in Derbyshire, UK, as one of the nicest country homes in the UK, and it's a beautiful place to go and visit. The arts and the architecture and the grounds, it's absolutely gorgeous. And she did that. She rescued
Wow.
it, and it's huge, and it's been in so many films. And it's a really lovely place to visit. It's one of my favourite places to go. Anyway, so these sisters all wrote to each other, and it was like it's almost like we've come full circle a little bit, because I feel like we I rarely talk to people on the phone anymore, but I text them,
Yeah.
or I'll DM them, or I'll email
Mm,
them, and it's almost a similar form of communication,
totally.
But they kept up their correspondence week after week after week after week for all of those years. And the stuff that they've got their own shorthand, they've got their own language almost, they've got all their own nicknames. And I love it. I absolutely love it. And I'm
That's
going to
really
read it
cool.
again, I think, because keep thinking I'm going to read it again, and I never do. And I think I will read it again now. But yeah, it's really good.
Oh, that's great.
I had another question.
Okay.
So before we finish, what book did you read as a kid that you think had the biggest impact on you,
Hmm.
either as a person or in some way?
Hmm. Wow. That's a really good question. Hmm.
And if you like, I can answer it from my perspective first. If you want a bit of time to think about it.
Okay. Sure. I'll take you up on that.
Okay. So I remember I used to read a lot when I was a kid. I had a really advanced reading age when I was quite young. So I read a lot of books that I probably shouldn't have been reading. But I
Mm-hmm.
also read a lot of children's books as well. And somebody gave me a box set, and it had Heidi, What Katie Did, and a couple of other books. And I can't remember what they were, but I remember Heidi and What Katie Did kind of were the ones that I read most often, and I reread most often. And I have got a copy of What Katie Did right here, which I bought fairly recently. Um, because I missed it. I loved this book, and I missed it so much. And it's actually American, and weirdly, it's actually a story of five sisters whose mother, I think, has died, and they live with their dad, and I think they've got an aunt or a housekeeper or something. And Katie is this. She's the eldest, and she's really naughty. She's always getting into scrapes. She's always getting into trouble. She's selfish. She lies. She's just naughty. I mean,
Hmm.
not like horrendous. You'd kick her out of the house if
Yeah.
you see her get naughty, but she's just really naughty. And then she has an accident, and she hurts her back, and she has to convalesce for months and months and months and months and months. And she has a cousin that comes to see her who's disabled in a wheelchair, and she also takes on from her wheelchair. She takes on the running of the house, becomes the housekeeper, deciding on dinners and things like that with the help of her cousin and whatnot. And she sort of becomes less selfish and a better person, and almost has a change of personality. Starts to think more about others, starts to think more about her siblings and her dad and all of this stuff. And I don't know why it had an amazing impact on me. And I don't think
Hmm.
so much so right then when I read it, but later on when I grew up, and a little bit when I was a little bit older, and um, it suddenly occurred to me that I needed to be a bit more like Katie, that I needed to be more thoughtful of other people and
Mm-hmm.
take responsibility for things that I did, and not try and find excuses for things and all that sort of thing. And I think it all came from that book.
Hmm.
So I think that's
Wow.
yeah. I think I blame Katie for me being a nice person,
There you go.
or at least
Yeah.
trying to be a nice person.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Oh, okay. Well, I, you know, I would say that when I was a kid, um, as as cliche as it might sound, like the little engine that could. Um,
Oh yeah.
yeah, like that was a little. That was a book that I used to read over and over and over again as a tiny tiny kid. Um, but I feel like that. Um, that among like just the positive climate that I grew up in terms of uh, not putting too many stipulations or barriers or like excuses as to why I couldn't do something if I wanted to. Like I am definitely privileged in that I have not had to overcome uh, huge, major, like crazy barriers to things, but um, with that in mind, like I just felt like that book really helped me think about what I wanted to do and talk about persistence and talk about continuing even if you failed, try again type of a thing. And I feel like that helped me shape my view of other people too, and maybe even more so like apply that thought process to other people even before myself,
Mm.
because I can be somebody's best advocate and coach, but I don't always apply it to myself or think those things about myself. So yeah, that's kind of a book that kind of I come back to, um, just in terms of like influence, and um, it's why I do what I do right now, for work, right? Like, despite
Mm.
any student that I work with and the limitations that may or may not exist in their skills, um, it doesn't it will not stop myself and the people that I work with, or even what I try to instill in the students, to continue to try regardless of what barriers might be there, and we can try to overcome those, if they do pop up, whatever physical, mental or intellectual um, deficits there may be. So I mean that it might be a long-winded answer to your question, and maybe not one that you expected to hear, but yeah, definitely one that
No,
sticks out in my mind.
it's kind of a similar theme to,
Yeah.
yeah, it's amazing how you get influenced by those things. And I think now younger generations than me have got that kind of inspiration from getting so into Harry Potter and those
Yes.
characters. Um, and maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah,
Won't,
absolutely.
won't talk about the author, but yeah, the characters definitely.
So we kind of touched. I had one more question, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up. But we kind of talked about like maybe like reading habits that we're ashamed of. Is there
Hmm.
something that you would that you is there something that you do that you feel like other people would completely be like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? Like, do you actually do that when it comes to reading a book?
Only what we were talking about
What we
earlier,
talked
where
about
I
earlier. Okay.
totally disrespect the book,
Okay.
where it's cracking the spines and all that sort of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Um, yeah, and I think that's probably, yeah. I don't think I have any particularly terrible reading habits other than that.
So one that I feel like people would balk at for me is, a lot of times I will when I start a book, I'll read like the first chapter or two, and then I'll flip to the back of the book and I'll read the last sentence. See, you just
Yeah,
gasped.
I did. I have actually been known to read the last sentence of a book
Really?
before reading before. Yeah, or yeah, maybe. Yeah, I've definitely done that. It's not something I habitually do, but yeah, I've definitely done that.
Now, I don't do that with audiobooks, I will say, but like if I have a physical copy of a book, I will sometimes flick to the end, to the last page, and read like the last sentence or two, and just I don't know why I do that, but I do. Like, and it's not like I want to spoil it for myself, but I'm just like, I don't know. It's something that I do. So
The one thing that I will say though is that I will quite often read the back of a book or the blurb,
yeah,
so I know what the book is going to be about before I buy it, because I want to
yeah.
know if I'm going to be interested. And then because my memory is so goddamn awful, I generally forget by the time I've started reading the book what
What it
it was
was
about in
about,
the first
yeah,
place, and so it's all new to me. So what I could do is I can read the last line of a book and still forget,
totally,
and then enjoy the book.
yeah.
So yeah, no
Well,
spoilers for me because I forget everything.
well, and I mean, unless like the last, and this happens so rarely, I feel like the last line of a book is rarely a spoiler. You know,
Hmm.
like it's usually something super ambiguous and like
Yeah,
not something that you would even remember. So
I've got to look at the last line of this book I've got in front of me now.
okay, do
Let's have a
it,
look.
do
Here we
it.
go. Right, it is. Oh my god. The last line of this book is me all over. Right. Every day I see things which ought to be done and I don't do them. It's too delightful to have you praise me, but you mustn't. I don't deserve it. But although she said she didn't deserve it, I think that Katie did.
Hmm,
How
that's
cute
really
is that?
nice. Yeah. See, yeah, and like those I love that stuff. I don't know why. Like the last line of a book, I feel like it doesn't necessarily give it away, but for me it's just
Yeah.
like it continues that warm fuzzy feeling that I have when I'm reading the beginning of the book. Um so
That would be a
um
good quiz game, actually, wouldn't it? Because you quite
it
often get
would.
first lines as a quiz.
Yeah.
So, it was the best of times, it was the worst of
Oh
times, or
yes.
it is a truth universally acknowledged. A man of fortune must be a wonderful wife, or something along those lines. Um, yeah, last lines of a book would be an interesting one because you'd probably have to guess a lot of the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, oh, that might be something we can do with our Discord crew
That would be cool.
at some point.
Oh,
Create a last lines quiz.
we could definitely do like a trivia night, like a book
Mm,
trivia night or something if people are into it.
we could.
I like
That
that
would be
idea.
good. Yeah.
Um, okay, so we should probably wrap up a little bit. I guess thank you to everybody that has downloaded and listened to the podcast. If you've made it this far, or those that are in chat, definitely appreciate you as well. With you have listened to the live unedited version of this podcast. I think the one thing that we just want to promote is that next week on what would that be?
Ninth,
April 9th? 10th. April
tenth,
10th.
tenth.
We will be uh, discussing the book Clara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro.
Or
And
if you're English, it's Clara and the Sun.
did I said
I
Clara?
said Clara.
That's
Yeah.
probably because I'm talking to you and I just have Claire. Like,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Would you have said it was
I would have
Clara?
said Clara.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Clara.
Okay, fine. Yeah, I wasn't sure if
Clara.
it was a.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't know if it was an American pronunciation of Clara.
I mean, it could
Anyway,
be. It
like
could
Craig,
be.
because
Yeah.
Americans say Craig, not Craig.
Craig. Yeah, that's what I. Yeah. Anyway,
Anyway,
we're trying to wrap up.
okay.
No, it's so yeah, so we'll be talking about that book. We're really interested to hear what everybody else thought of it. Anybody that has also read it, and yeah, we'll go into that book in depth and we'll be spoiling it as well. So we'll make sure to include that spoiler warning, of course. And we would love if you would follow us on Twitch. That's twitch.tv/the_book_nook. And You can also follow us on Twitter. I don't believe we have an Instagram at this point. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. Um,
I thought I'd set up Instagram actually.
you
Or
may
had I not?
have. You may have. I know you definitely set up a Twitter.
Yes, it
Um,
is TBN underscore the underscore book underscore nook.
okay.
It's the Instagram. We haven't actually done anything with it yet, but we're there. We're
Yeah.
on there.
We will do something with it, I promise. If nothing else, just to get an intro post and to promote this podcast. So, one thing that we wanted to do, I think we'll do this at the end of every episode, is to read a random quote from a book, and because I put the table of contents, as Claire and I are calling it, the rundown of the show, just so that we're keeping up on track. I chose a quote from To Kill a Mockingbird, and that reads, "Until I feared I would lose it, I never loved to read. One does not love breathing." And that's by Harper Lee in To Kill a Mockingbird. So thanks everybody for listening.
Did you want my favorite quote as well?
All
Or did
right,
you want...
yeah, let's do it.
So we can edit this out, or we can edit this in post. Um, so my favorite quote is about reading from a play rather than an actual book. But anyway, and it is: the best moments in reading are when you come across something, a thought, a feeling, a way of looking at things that you'd thought special, particular to you. And here it is, set down by someone else, a person you've never met, maybe even someone long dead, and it's as if a hand has come out and taken yours. And I love that sentiment about
That's
reading.
that's a lovely quote. I love that.
And that's from The History Boys by Alan Bennett, who is quite possibly the best playwright in modern playwriting history.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that, Claire.
You're welcome.
And thanks for doing this podcast with me.
No, thank you. You're awesome. I've loved this. I've loved this.
I love this too.
I've missed it so much. I think this is this is making my heart happy.
Good.
Doing this.
Me too. And with that, we will go ahead and wrap it up. Thanks everybody for listening and downloading. I can't say to rate and review us at this point, but if you have any feedback for us, we're definitely open to it. And if not, we will see you next week.
Bye, everyone.
All right. Bye. And scene. 132. Hey, we did our first podcast.
That was so good.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And I mean, I could have gone so much longer.
Yeah. Just setting some stuff in the chat.
Yep. Oh, perfect. Yeah, to be fair, I haven't even looked at chat because I've had you up on my one monitor.
Are we still streaming?
We are still streaming.
Ah, cool.
So what I thought is cool is like we can obviously intro and do a little bit with the chat before, but then we can also do after as well. So yeah. And I think it's kind of cool that like everybody gets to see a little bit about like the ins and outs, the behind the scenes, so to speak. But yeah, Marty, thanks so much for hanging out. Blunk, of course, appreciate it. And Not Quite Elite, I appreciate everybody that popped in chat and hit us with a follow. Anybody lurking, it's always fun. So yeah, I don't know that I have anything else necessarily to say to chat at this point. We can go ahead and wrap
really.
up.
Yeah.
All right.
No, I think I'm good. Yeah, thanks everyone. It's been so much fun to do this.
Thanks, Marty. I appreciate that. That's good feedback. Awesome. Well,
We shall see what it sounds like in the edit.
Yes, we shall. I guess with that, we'll go ahead and end the stream. I don't know. We probably won't rate anybody this week, but maybe next week we will. Maybe what we can do too is like throughout the week, maybe Claire and I can find other like podcasts or um, like other people that do something similar,
Yeah,
and then we can look for them when they're online, if they're online.
perfect.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you later.
Bye.